These are Swedish folklore stories from the 19th century, usually written down around 1920 or 1930 and translated from Swedish to English by me. The stories in this video are about the folklore being Näcken, something that for some people from Viking Age up to the 20th century was a very real thing to be scared of. There are even a man during the 17th century that got paid by the town of Stockholm because their public toilet made him suffer from what is supposed to be a bite from this being. You can find that story and more facts and history about Näcken in a link in the description below. Before I start telling the story, I need to explain what the old challenge buckle the belt is, or spänna bälte as it is called in Sweden. According to the myth and the tales, this was a way of fighting out a duel and had been around since medieval days and was popular up until around 18th century. There are no real evidence that this way of dueling ever was actually done this way, but according to the lore, this is how you did it. First, the two men challenged each other with cocky and harsh words, then they drew their knives, placed themselves face against face very close to each other, and with their free hand grabbed the other person's wrist where he held the knife. Other people would then fasten a belt around the two so they could not get away from each other, and the fight started. When one of them was dead, the duel was won, and according to the lore, it very often ended with both men dead. So, with that explained, let's hear the actual stories. Näcken wanted a black cat, Lunda Södermanland, told by Karl-Erik Pettersson, born 1856. They learned how to play from Näcken. They were supposed to go down 3 Thursday nights in a row to a river and sit down there to play. The first nights they had to put up as good of a show they could themselves, but the third night they would get to see him, Näcken. They had to have bought a black cat, a fiddler's cat, with them. A black cat that didn't have one single white hair on it, and they would give it to him. But then Näcken also wanted to buckle the belt with them. See, then it wasn't smart to wear a normal strong belt, because then they would be dragged down into the water. A piece of wool yarn was enough. That would snap, and then they got away. Näcken tuned their fiddles. Hellinge, Skåne, told by Andreas Dahlqvist, born 1845. If the musicians wanted their fiddles really well tuned, they just put them close to a creek and Näcken would tune them. When Näcken tuned fiddles, he has another fiddle with him, you see, that he tunes after. Therefore, the musicians needed to carefully have marked their fiddle, because if they had their fiddles swapped to Näcken's fiddle, they played so that both table and benches jumped around. That happened to one that I played together with. He must have had his fiddle swapped, and when he played, both table and benches jumped. The dancers couldn't stop. Vreta Kloster, Östergötland, told by the brothers Andersson, written down 1932. There was a fiddler that had learned to play by Näcken, so he was at an event and there was one that asked him to play for them. He then started to play Näcken's polska, and they had to start dancing, every single one of them there. It was so that the furniture also started to dance. They was going to dance themselves to death, all of them. But then there was a maid that had been out to give the animals their evening food, and a 4-leaf clover had gotten stuck on her clothes. So when she got back in, she could see that Näcken was sitting behind the fiddler. She then walked over and cut the strings of the fiddle, because that was the only way to get him to stop. Otherwise, they would have danced until they all had fell down. Näcken as a blacksmith apprentice, Ysane, Blekinge, told by Johan Gustafsson, born 1858. There was a Näck that took a place as an apprentice with a blacksmith for a year, and all he wanted was the iron that went to waste. So when the year was up, he told the smith to make a sword out of the iron, and the smith did so. Then Näcken told him that he the morning after should go down to the lake and look at the water. If the water was green, then he would have been the winner, but if it was red, then he would have lost. He had red blood because he had been with the smith. It was like this, that in that lake there was 2 Näcken. Now they would fight so there could only be one. When the smith came down to the lake next morning, the water was green. After that, the blacksmith would get as much fish out of that lake as he wanted. The Elven dance, Svenarum, Småland, told by Claes Karlsson. Petter Ekström lived at a place in Ödestuga parish. He made both the fiddle and played as the devil. He was usually so drunk at the dances, but he still played. He could play the Elven dance. When he did that, he always sent one of them out to later come in and cut off the strings, because it would not be silence before that after he started to play. Once when he played the Elven dance, he threw his fiddle and the bow away from him. But they played on just as good by themselves, and everything around them jumped around. That has been told by Axel Rödja. He was there and saw it. They also told that one Sunday morning when they went to church, they saw some heads jumping around on a hill. It was just the heads, the other parts were worn down. That was some people that had played the Elven dance during the night.